I know you ain't about to talk about the Panthers.
Yeah, I'm about to, on your Instagram pages, I oftentimes see photographs and symbols and imagery of Huey P. Newton and the Black Fist and others who were not not directly members of the Black Panther Party, but were sort of seen as somewhat affiliated or fellow comrades, as they called themselves back then, like Angela Davis and whatnot. So we're gonna get into some of these characters. This book entitled "A Taste of Power," written by Elaine Brown, and a book titled "This Side of Glory," written by David Hilliard and Lewis Cole. David Hilliard was also a member of the Black Panther Party. I've never heard of this Lewis Cole gentleman, but Deborah, the writer of this article, goes off to say, I'm going to read directly from the article, "The energizing and fundamental role women play in revolutionary organizations came home to me afresh as I read memoirs by Elaine Brown and David Hilliard, both former leaders in the Black Panther Party. The two authors show us the reason for the party's spectacular rise and also its agonizing fall. Their books reveal directly or indirectly how sexism helped to destroy the Panthers." I'll read this. "For them, as for many others, the Black Panther Party and its visionary 10-point program gave direction and potency to their daily fight against racism. They show how the party's internationalist, integrationalist, and socialist parties grabbed the hearts and minds of Black people and people of all colors radicalized by war, injustice, and broken promises in the U.S. and globally." So like I said, the Black Panther Party was a very popular, almost like a mainstream group. As a matter of fact, we see the tendency of the modern day white progressive or white liberal to we call it sort of pandering and this kind of bigotry of low expectation that they have for a lot of Black people, right? This sort of modern day liberal racism. Back then, Huey P. Newton's lawyer, whose name escapes me at the time, but he said after the fact, after Huey passed away, after having represented him numerous times in his various interactions with the law, said that Huey actually, check this out now, Huey actually loved when he had a white jury. And the reason why Huey P. Newton loved when he had an all-white jury, and they would try to, select jurors who he thought would be sympathetic to him, because why? Because he knew that he can play on their sympathy. He could play on their ignorance because he felt as though he can manufacture their sympathy, because he wanted to give off the impression that, once again, he was this Black man oppressed in America who was trying to lift up his people, right? And the pigs were just unjustly after him. Hilliard relives the war waged on the party by the police and the FBI, the infiltration, the murders and arrests. With refreshing honesty, he lays bare the destructive internal trends fed by the government's dirty tricks that became entrenched practice, the paranoia that turned comrades against each other, the culture of drugs and gangsterism, and founding hero Huey P. Newton's progressive isolation and one-man rule. Huey P. Newton was a dictator. He ran the Black Panther Party with an iron fist. And believe me when I tell you, once again, you hear me, and I'm reading directly from the article, and I started off talking about socialism, all right? Anyone who makes it up in their mind that this is what they want to adhere to has dictatorial tendencies. These people are tyrants just screaming to get out. You don't want to give the likes of an Umar Johnson control over your life, all right? Same thing with Huey P. Newton. And this is coming from David Hilliard, a man who was a high-ranking member of the Black Panther Party. But of course, Hilliard, he blames it on the FBI. Okay, Hilliard has more trouble, however, in discussing sexism. But he says enough for a reader to conclude that poisoned male-female relations must have played an enormous part in disintegrating the party. Now, in contrast, in Elaine Brown's Taste of Power, vividly describes the persuasive and sometimes brutal ill treatment that female Panthers faced: physical abuse, exploitation as sexual prizes, and workhorse denigration of their abilities. As early as 1969, Brown realized that women, this is a quote from Elaine Brown, Mind you, she was the leader of the Black Panther Party in 1974. This is a quote from her, that women would have to fight for their right to fight for freedom. So women were told by the Panthers, no, y'all get the, no, hold on. I'm not saying that the Panthers were wrong for telling the women to get to the background, because by 1975, she concluded that the value of my life had been obliterated as much by being female as by being black and poor. So female, black, poor, you have gender, race, and class. Here's where we started. This is back in 1975. I think the so-called scholar Kimberly Crenshaw coined the term intersectionality in, I think, 1989, sometime during the late 1980s. But you have no defense when that same modality, when that same methodology is being used against you. You have no defense, because the problem isn't black feminism. Black feminism is a mutation, a subcategory within a larger category, black man, that many of you are still trapped in. And I'm gonna expose it. But like many black women, Brown believed that feminism was strictly for well-off whites and was put off by the predominant radical feminist ideology of the era. That is, the idea that gender concerns are more important than race concerns and that men are the enemy, not capitalism. There's that word, capitalism. Oh, we gonna talk about that. Brown admits that she did not always speak out against female subordination in the Panthers. Instead, she concentrated on shoring up her own tenuous leadership position conferred on her unilaterally by Newton. To stay on top while Huey was in prison, she relied on the normal macho enforcement techniques. She reports that she was finally goaded into action when Regina Davis, who managed the Panthers' highly praised school, ended up in the hospital. The brothers, as Elaine Brown calls them, had beaten Davis up and broken her jaw because she reprimanded a male colleague for not carrying out an assignment. Now, this is according to Elaine Brown. So you have another female member of the Black Panther Party, Regina Davis, who was severely beaten and had her jaw broken by other members of the Black Panther Party who happened to be male. All right? But once again, our black women have turned their backs on us because, see, there is something intrinsic in any man who would cling to this ideology, because that's a weak man off rip. The Black Panther chairman, Brown, had more influence than any other woman. Her failure to challenge female visibility inside the party was a tragedy, not just for the Panthers, but for the feminist movement, which relies on the pace-setting contributions of radical women of color to remain healthy, united, and effective. Brown and Hilliard, in the incredibly significant party they belonged to, could not break free of the sexism of the time, but learning from their struggles will help today's anti-racist revolutionaries, men and women, create a new organization that takes up where the Panthers left off. But this is the title of the book. But Some of Us Are Brave, A History of Black Feminism in the United States. This is an anthology that was put together by a woman, co-edited by Akasha Gloria Hull, Patricia Bell Scott, and another so-called scholar named Barbara Smith. Now, they explain black feminism as such. They say, the black feminist movement grew out of and in response to the black liberation movement and the women's movement. In an effort to meet the needs of black women who felt they were being racially oppressed in the women's movement, so that's pretty much white women, and sexually oppressed in the black liberation movement, the black feminist movement was formed. All too often, black was equated with black men. This is what they're saying. Black was equated with black men and woman was equated with white women. So black women had no real movement of their own. So they needed a movement. Look it up. As a result, black women were an invisible group whose existence and needs were ignored, right? The birth of the black feminism movement was marked by the founding of the National Black Feminist Organization in New York in 1973. Black women faced constant sexism in the black liberation movement. Although there were different movements for black liberation, the civil rights movement, black nationalism, the Black Panthers, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and others, for the purposes of this paper, they are all considered under the title of black liberation. So you had all this sexism and abuse of black women going on in all these movements, all right? Now, I don't know, black men, are y'all taking ownership of this? Did this happen or what? Or are the black women just making this up? Or if it did in fact happen, does that in fact justify the need for a black feminist movement? Because y'all telling me that black feminism is fucking up the black community, that all these butch, all these masculine, Jezebel-spirited women are fucking up black men and destroying the concept of marriage, the nuclear family, and this, that, and the third. And that's what's in fact harming the black community. I see a lot of y'all starting to come over. All right. But then when we start talking about these things like the importance of fathers, the importance of the nuclear family and growing up with both a mother and a father in the home, y'all start telling me that those are Republican talking points. Y'all start telling me that these are conservative talking points. This is what Bell Hooks says about y'all black men. She's a black woman. She says, black men overemphasized white male sexual exploitation of black womanhood as a way to explain their disapproval of interracial relationships. It was, however, no contradiction of their political views to have interracial relationships themselves. Eldridge Cleaver was a rapist. Let me read a quote from him. To refine my technique and modus operandi, I started out by practicing on black girls in the ghetto. In the black ghetto, where vicious and dark deeds appear not as aberrations or deviations, but are the norm, but as part of the sufficiency of the evil of a day. And when I considered myself smooth enough, I crossed the tracks and sought out white prey. Cleaver later on goes on to express his remorse at his actions, but retains his misogynistic attitudes. One can see both sexism and racism at work in this citation. Not only is he committing violence against women, but he considers the violence against black girls to be less serious than those against their white counterparts. Now, that Eldridge Cleaver, because he's expressing not only his misogyny, so his hatred for women, and his racism because he's going after black women first. That's what she says. But what did he just say? He said that he honed his skills practicing on black girls in the ghetto because he said violence was not an aberration or a deviation, but it was the norm. The reason why he went after black girls is because he said black girls stayed in areas where things like this were common. He didn't, that's not what he said. Now she can put that spin on it all she wants to, but he said he went after black girls because he knew that he can get away with it. Movement. Now these are myths used to divert black women from their freedom. This is according to this woman here, Barbara Smith. Number one, the black woman is already liberated. She said that's one myth. Myth number two, racism is the primary or only oppression black women have to confront. Myth number three, feminism is nothing but man-hating. Myth number four, women's issues are narrow, apolitical concerns. People of color need to deal with the larger struggle. And five, those feminists are nothing but lesbians. But see, what y'all problem is, y'all mad because y'all claim that in order for black people to really get to where they have to go, the black woman need to get in line. And this is the same shit that they were saying back then. Wait a minute. We doing all this shit for the black race, but what about the cause of black women? Now, black men are saying, no, but fuck that. This race shit is more important. We need y'all to unify with us so we can take on who our enemy really is. This is what y'all telling them. So y'all mad that the black woman done broke rank. So you want her back in the fold. But they like, man, fuck what you talking about. See, the problem is the shit that y'all embrace in the first place. This whole notion that, oh, this blackness shit that we as a people, whether we talking gender collective or we're talking about a racial collective, there is no such thing as we all go here and then we move here. Because just like black women have their own unique perception of what it means to be a black woman that you can never experience, at the end of the day, what you all need to begin to embrace is the idea that the individual himself is the ultimate minority. You don't need none of that shit. Because you can't say shit to them when they do what the fuck they do on the basis that they do it on because you move in the same way. You can't sit up and say, well, we need to fight for black liberation. No, you don't need to fight for shit. You need to fight for yourself by doing what the fuck it is you need to do. Because this ain't that, my nigga. This ain't the shit y'all talking about. That's not reality. You living in some play shit. I was young when The Color Purple came out, but remember, Color Purple was based upon a novel that was written by Alice Walker, and it was, directed by Steven Spielberg. But Alice Walker, she coined the term womanist to describe the black feminist movement. Now let's go into what she means when she uses the term womanist, from womanish. It's the opposite of girlish, frivolous, irresponsible, or not serious. A womanist is a black feminist or feminist of color, usually referring to outrageous, audacious, courageous, or willful behavior, wanting to know more or in greater depth than is considered good for one. She is responsible, in charge, and serious. Definition number 2, also, a woman who loves other women, sexually and or non-sexually, appreciates and prefers women's culture. I don't know what that means.
Or strong J.
Women's emotional flexibility, values tears as natural counterbalance of laughter, and women's strength, committed to the survival and wholeness of entire people, male and female, not separatists, except periodically for health. Now, some of you, say Alice Walker, you may not know who she. So she goes over to the Soviet Union. This is during the Cold War now, to tell the Soviet Union that she didn't approve of the United States bombing them. See, y'all thought, that all the stuff that was going on back then, speaking of the Panthers and all the stuff, all the groups and we all see the grainy black and white footage. Some of it is in color. Of the hell no, we won't go, make love, not war, and this, that, and the third, all this protest against the Vietnam War, and Muhammad Ali saying ain't no Viet Cong never called me nigga. So many of you all are on that train and on that bandwagon. I don't think you have the foggiest idea what the fuck the Vietnam War was really all about. Here we have this woman, Alice Walker, she's going over to visit the Soviet Union. So she said, I didn't see a lot of generals, but children, women, and men and old people of both sexes were everywhere. They were usually smiling and offering flowers or vodka. There was no iron curtain between us, as I had been told to expect by the Georgia media. I love to tell them the story of how I was so ignorant at the time that I didn't even have a clue who folks were queuing up in to see Lenin's tomb. Nor did I even know what the Kremlin was. So this is Alice Walker. Once again, she's painting this glorious utopian sort of vision of what life was like when she went to the Soviet Union. She said there was no Iron Curtain. Right? There were just men and women and boys and girls smiling, offering flowers and vodka. And in reality, the Soviet Union was hell on earth. And for the longest time, of course, our liberal media like the New York Times and writers like Walter Duranty were running cover for men like Joseph Stalin because they were on Joseph Stalin's payroll. But you had a lot of sympathizers the same way. See, it's the same old soup, just reheated. We think all this shit is new because we're living in the kind of the political environment that Donald Trump created. Okay, but what you all don't understand is that the people who are opposed to Donald Trump or who hate Donald Trump was doing the exact same things then that they are doing today, because the media in America back as far back as the 1930s were running cover and running these cushy drive-by non-investigative uncritical articles about what was going on behind the Iron Curtain, because actors in our media, of course, sympathized with their cause. And the cause, of course, was communism. And so there you have just a little background on Alice Walker.